So I'm here with Jeff Jarvinen at the J-File Media Studio. We're going to talk about the aftermath of the concert for Mick. Now, the concert for Mick was started by Jeff and Tracy Lundeen, and just like within hours grew to a huge event. Could you explain a little bit more about that, Jeff?
Armin, thank you very much. Well, what it is actually, in the big picture, Mick Jackson just happened to be a close friend of mine from the neighborhood, back on the block boy. Right. At any rate, Mick was a lifelong musician in Duluth, Minnesota, based out of Duluth, Minnesota, and actually performed, which is remarkable, actually, you might say continuously for over 45 years. Now, not 24/7 continuous, but I mean always in a band.
Right.
Always in demand, always that good, always that well liked. So, what happened with Mick, of course, it happens to many people, many musicians. He developed stage 4 lung cancer, passed away actually about a month before his concert that we had planned since we got the diagnosis. Hence, we had this fabulous remarkably noted concert on August 21st, 2016 at a respectably sized venue in Duluth, Minnesota called Clyde Event Center, an old ironworks boom-making factory converted.
Yes.
Wonderful room, wonderful crowd, and what happened there at that event, I'm sure happens other places, but one of the things that we're real proud of, and when I say we, I'm talking about myself, producer Tracy Lundeen, friends of the family of the Jacksons, Greg and Claudia Kemper, were instrumental in moving this thing forward. It was absolutely well produced, and we have kudos from friends, family, musicians, everybody in the business saying this was the greatest thing they've ever seen, and we're quite proud of that. But we need people to remember that as well as it was produced, there were 70 musicians, 22 bands, a room full of friends, family, and colleagues that made the event.
Yes.
So now there you have the big nutshell. So that's what took place, and it was out of love and respect for in my terminology, a cool cat.
A very cool cat.
Yeah.
One of the best people I've met in this life.
Yeah.
And that was just and I posted about it, but
yeah.
51 plus years in the entertainment business I've been. It's one of the smoothest things I've ever seen, and it was the coolest thing I've ever been part of.
When you posted that meant a lot to us. Because, we know you've been out there.
Yeah.
Even though you're a local boy, big deal. You've been out there. You've been on the road. You've played in front of huge audiences, small audiences, almost no audiences.
Yeah.
You've run the gamut. So when we get a seasoned veteran saying that's as good as it gets, well, we're pretty happy with that.
Well, great, because it was a magnificent event. But yeah, so on to the actual event. I know I played the night before in Isle, Minnesota, and got home about 3 o'clock in the morning, and of course still jacked up, and had to eat something because I'd burned so many calories while I'm playing, and didn't get to sleep till 5. And then the alarm went off at 8. And I was up, I made a pot of coffee, I got myself going, and I think around 8:45 or so, something, I made it to Clyde Iron, and we started unloading my trailer with the Hammond and the Leslie and the Rhodes piano and the Mini Moog for the back line. So that was the start of the day for me. with no sleep, and I went until midnight when we finally sat down at Sir Benedict's to me and Wanda and our friend Pat sat down at Sir Benedict's to just eat something because I had a donut earlier in the morning and that was it. But that energy, the energy carried me through the day, and it was the energy of Mick and everybody there for Mick. I mean, all of these people. But this guy just had so many people that loved him. I mean, Mick Jackson was just beloved, and beloved is kind of a large word, but he was beloved by everyone who came in contact with him, and that's what drove the energy of the day, and that's what fueled me throughout the day. I felt no tiredness until about 1 o'clock the next morning.
Well, and you know what? I'm going to have to agree with you. That I don't know that. I don't even recall eating on Sunday until I got home. We went over and got coffee in the morning. I did have some little thing. I forget what it was, but more to the point is, and I can't speak about other communities, okay? I mean, I've basically led my life in this region community. But, I've produced other music event jams to benefit other musicians and stuff, some more successful than others. It's always a timing issue. But, when you put out a call in this town, in Duluth, Minnesota, Superior, Wisconsin, upper thing, musicians come out of the woodwork. They always have. Tracy Lundeen and I did some benefits up the shore at the Lakeview Castle years back. One of them was called the Great Music Marathon. I forget what the other ones were. We raised money for the Cancer Society, yada yada. 1 year for the veterans. We did 13 bands in the day, 2 stages, and we got them on and off on time, and it worked out really good. But when we put out that call, now, granted, this is for the Big Cancer Society, this is for Vietnam veterans, boom, the musicians were there. We filled up that 13-band roster within a week. Yeah. So this goes to show what happened with Mick, and we discussed this in our last podcast, that when the call went out, we thought, well, geez, if we get, 6 or 7 bands, this is going to be fabulous. Mm-hmm. Well, we had 6 bands in 3 days. Then we had 15 bands in 2 weeks, and we had to close it down in 3 weeks because we had 22 bands. So that just shows you the playlist was closed down a month and a half before the event took place.
Right.
So there's a little testimony, and sure we can say it's because of Mick, and much of it was, but it's the brotherhood.
Yes. And this is such a wonderful region. As I've said to you before, the talent per capita here is beyond anything that I've seen anywhere else in the country. And it continues to amaze me, especially with the young people who are coming up and all of the venues that have these people, and they come out and they play for free for the venue at the Red Herring and Carmody's and other places. They're basically playing for free or for very little. And yet they come out and they're doing it with their heart, and they're putting their music out and their sound, just like people did years ago, just like Bill Sandwick, who came out and did his song, and it was wow, that is amazing.
Well, there were some standouts. Now I'll go back to your saying about even the youth. In my world, there were a lot of Northland legends up on the stage. But when I say that, I'm talking about cats who've played 40 plus years, not just 10 and 15 and 20. And there's nothing wrong with that. We appreciate that. But we're talking guys with 40 and 50 years of playing in there. Okay. There was a young man who played on the stage, and I forget the band's name. The lead singer was a tall, good-looking girl with blonde, streaked hair. Her name was Robin Rowe. I forget the name of their band. Mick was in a band with her and Tom Borgren and some other people called Almost Seven. Well, their guitar player, as you recall, was a young kid named Brian James Gatton, I think. We know his father. You wouldn't have known him. The young kid he was played on stage left there. And I don't know if it was what they were doing, if it was what tune it was. Maybe it was a Prince tune or whatever. But you saw what he did. He took off on the guitar thing and just kept building and going and building and going, and the crowd's getting crazier. And he barely finished his tune, and the crowd is nuts and applauding, and the kid. That was I bet you that's one of the biggest thrills this kid's ever gotten. And we're talking about a kid who's in his 20s now.
Yeah.
You know, and quiet and reserved.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, that was just incredible. And
yeah.
this is part of well, now he's a legend in the making if he is able to continue and do it for sure. I wouldn't say he's a legend today. He's just a great guitar player. Yeah. But like you say, the per capita quality here. Here's a 20-something kid as good as you see anywhere, anytime.
Yes.
You know, and I'm not going to put him up against Stevie Ray Vaughan or something like that, but in the big picture, here he is. I mean, he's blowing the crowd away. Well, what does that tell you?
Well, the backstage buzz, one from Jamie Tura, who said, "Fucking show off," and the second one from George Zizas, who said, "I'm going to quit guitar." You know,
there it is.
Playing.
There it is.
And George, you know, George is one of the best.
And George is one of the greats.
One of the greats that's ever come out of this area.
Yeah.
And he's looking at this kid drooling.
Yeah. Well, that's the point I was trying to make, is that here's a young legend in the making. But I knew only from Facebook that he was out there and he played guitar, and I knew his father way, 30 years ago, 40 years ago. I never knew of the kid, and then here he is. He's playing with this group, and he goes up there and they're playing, and then, of course, that one particular song where he takes off, and I'm telling you, I was speechless.